In the name of Allah, who is the most bountiful and the most merciful. Today, our topic of discussion is periodic classification of element. First of all, we want to introduce this topic. Okay, what is periodic classification of? What is the need of classification of elements? First of all, to achieve a thorough understanding of complex subject like chemistry, it would be highly described to fit all the facts into a simple logical pattern. The periodic table of elements has served the purpose to synthesize the properties of elements. First of all, properties of element as well as their compound. Properties of elements and the properties of compound. So it is very useful to study periodic table. The periodic table provides a basic framework to study the periodic behavior of and physical and chemical properties of elements as well as their compounds and chemical properties and their compound. Actually, the main purpose of the study of periodic table is the it provides a basic framework to study the periodic behavior of physical and chemical properties of elements as well as their compounds. So if we look at its historical background, which is necessary to understand what was and how it is discovered, we look this one historical background. So first of all, Al-Razi was the first scientist who divided the elements into two groups on the basis of he divided into two groups on the basis of physical appearance, on the basis of physical and chemical properties, physical and chemical properties. So the MCQ was, who was the first chemist who divided the elements into two groups? So Al-Razi was the first scientist who divided the elements into two classes on the basis of physical and chemical properties. And the next one is in 1829. In 1829, Dobryner was a German scientist. Dobryner was a German scientist who gave his law, which is called Dobryner-Triades. Dobryner-Triades. So he arranged the known elements in groups called triad, as much contain three elements with similar properties, and these was called Dobryner-Triades. And the second one is Newland, and the second one in 1864, and the third one is 1864. That was Newland, who was an English chemist. He classified 62 elements. And known at that time in increasing order of their atomic mass. He noticed that every eighth element repeats its characteristics to the first one. So the principle on which this classification is based was called the law of octaves. So Newland was the man who gave law of octaves. So the question, a short question was there, gave law of octaves. So what was the law of octaves? Dobriner Newland was an English chemist. In 1864, he classified 62 elements known at that time in increasing order of their atomic masses. He noticed that every eighth element and had some properties in common with the first one. The principle on which this classification is based was called the law of octaves. So the fourth one, which is a very progressive to this historical background, so he was Russian chemist in 1871. So I think you got it. It was Mendeleev. Yes, this was Mendeleev, which gave more useful and which gave more useful and comprehensive scheme for the classification of elements. So he presented the first regular periodic table in which the elements of similar chemical properties were arranged. So if we look his periodic table, then we have to know, we come to know that he gives verticalums. He gives us a table which consists of some vertical columns and vertical columns and horizontal rows. He named as vertical columns as groups, and the horizontal rows are called periods. On he named those. So the horizontal rows of the table were called periods. Mendeleev also started by arranging the elements in ascending order of their atomic masses and found that elements having similar chemical properties appeared at regular intervals. So this significant observation was called periodic law. So actually, though the Mendeleev observed that some elements having similar chemical properties appeared at regular intervals when we place in this periodic table. So he names observations was he named owned observations periodic law. Mendeleev's left actually the main thing which we observed that he was an intellectual, that he gave some gaps, he left some gaps to his periodic table. He gave some gaps to his periodic table for the undiscovered elements which was not discovered yet, and by considering their positions in the periodic table. He, for example, that is the period of his periodic table. He named and give a position of some elements gap, empty spaces. First यहाँ पर हम कहते हैं ng and the second one so on. But he gave some gaps which were next undiscovered elements. So by considering their positions in the periodic table, he predicted properties of these elements. For example, germanium was not known at that time. So germanium was not discovered for that time. Germanium was not discovered that time, but Mendeleev was confident that this element must exist, so he predicted its properties. A few years later, germanium was indeed discovered, and remarkable agreement was found with Mendeleev's prediction. First of all, we are talking about free spaces which was left by Mendeleev in his periodic table. So it was true when germanium was discovered and placed at the right place which he was told earlier. So this was the historical background of periodic table. But before going to our modern periodic table, we look after that the improvement which was made in Mendeleev's periodic table. If we talk about improvements in Mendeleev's periodic table, we come across that when Moseley was the first man who discovered atomic number, a property of elements, in 1911. In 1911, so it was noticed that elements could be classified more satisfactorily by using their atomic numbers rather than their atomic masses. Hence, the periodic table was improved by arranging the elements in ascending order of their atomic numbers instead of their atomic masses. So, though Mendeleev's periodic table based on atomic masses, so it was changed to atomic number. So the arrangement order that was also ascending orders, and the improvement rectified a number of confusions. This arrangement rectified a number of confusions present in old periodic table. First of all, the modern periodic law states that the elements are arranged in ascending order of their atomic number. Arranged in ascending order of their atomic number. Then their chemical properties are repeated in a periodic manner. Chemical properties are repeated in periodic manner. So this was the periodic law, modern periodic law, which was stated that if the elements are arranged in ascending order of their atomic number, their chemical properties are repeated in a periodic manner. So the another improvement which were makes in Mendeleev's periodic table, that is the addition of an extra group. Addition of extra group, which is 8th A on the right side of the periodic table. On the right side of periodic table, which is also for noble gases, and the noble gases was not discovered yet at that time of Mendeleev's. So it is the next improvement we can say. And the other confusions in periodic Mendeleev leaves was that elements like beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and zinc, cadmium, and hydrogarium, mercury, that was the elements were placed in a single vertical group, while according to their properties they belong to two different categories. Actually they have different categories. They have different categories, but placed in a single group. This is because in it was removed by dividing the elements into two groups. It divide in vertical groups, two types of vertical. There are two types of vertical. First one A and the second one is B. First, like we can say first A and second A and so on. 8th A that, and the first B, second B, and so on. So these are the two types of vertical groups which were named as A and B, and the confusion was removed in periodic table. Beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, and barium are placed in group second A, in group second A, while zinc, cadmium and hydrogarium placed in group second B. So these were the three improvements which we concluded, which we take place in our modern periodic table. If we go from leave periodic table to modern periodic table, then we make three anonymous which popular improvements and the significant improvements, which were the first, we changed the atomic number, atomic masses to atomic number. We based on atomic number. So it was the first improvement. And the second one improvement was the addition of extra group, the addition of extra group of group 8th A. So it is for extreme, it consists of extreme right of the periodic table. This group contains noble gases which had not been discovered in Mandel's time. So, and other confusion we also discussed earlier: beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and the other one zinc, cadmium, and hydrogen are placed in the same vertical group, but it is totally different from each other. So in modern periodic table, the confusion was removed by dividing the elements in two types of vertical group. Which type of A and B? Like one, first day, second day, third day, fourth day, and like that. And the few like that, similar, first B, second B, third B, and so on. It is two types of vertical groups. So in the modern periodic table, we divided beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, and barium in second B group, and we placed zinc, cadmium, and hydrogarium or mercury in group second B. So it was the improvements in Mendel's periodic table which we have discovered yet. So the next topic we will discuss inshallah next class. So thank you so much for your cooperation.